Hello, colleagues. Hi, Sharenta.
Hi, Nawazi. How are you?
Good, and you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm in. Okay. What else?
Are we starting at 12:30, Nawazi? I know the program says 12:15, but it's 12:30.
Yeah, so Prim had announced 12:30, so I think that's when everyone will be starting.
Okay, no problem. We just have to wait for our chair and for everyone else to join and then get going from there. All right, let's wait until then.
Okay.
All right, colleagues, welcome to theme 1 on language issues. I just want to make sure that all the presenters are here. So, I don't see, Dr. DeWitt, and then Serenda is here. I see Miss Nari is here. I don't see Ngobi Lem Langeni. I see, okay, we have UWC here, and then lastly, it's Nolwasi. Nolwasi is here. So there's only one missing. Dr. Myongani, over to you. You're chairing this session. I'll just take over, when you leave.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bingatsai, and good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Freddie Munyongani, and I will be chairing this part of the session. I'm the academic leader for teaching and learning at the School of Law. Welcome you all, and thank you very much for having set aside a greater part of today to come and be with us. So we are about 3 minutes away from starting time. So I'll give it a bit of time so that other participants can also join in. Or do we have a full house now, Dr. Pindisa?
We can give them a few minutes.
Okay,
Let's give them a few minutes.
Thank you. We'll start at exactly 12:30. Ladies and gentlemen, it has just gone 12:30, and I think in the interest of time, we need to start. Once again, welcome to this session. I hope that our presenters are here, because I would like to call to the fore the very first presenters. It's about 3 of them, and they will be presenting on a topic, University Counseling Centers, part of a continuum to stimulate wholeness, thinking, academic resilience, and community. And I would like to apologize for not addressing you by your titles, because I see on the list that I have, it's only one who has a title. So in order to be on the safe side, I would just like to say that I would like to call Dorothea Hendricks, together with Divet Skirte, joined by Letitia Permal. I hope I've pronounced the names well. Colleagues, you will have about 15 minutes to present, and at the end of the 15 minutes, we will have 5 minutes to take questions from the floor. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, colleagues. In fact, my presentation is recorded because I'm in a setting that has very bad connectivity. So I'm not sure. Anna, are you going to set the recording going now?
Let me do that. Let me get
Thank
your
you.
recording.
Thank you. Very good. Anna is not yet showing the presentation itself. Ladies and gentlemen, while Dr. Bengesai is still sorting us out, I need to apologize in advance. I will only be able to attend this session, unfortunately. And after this session, I will hand over to Dr. Bengesai. But we'll wait for her to share the presentation.
I don't know, this saying the password is wrong.
Dr. Bengesai, the password is starting with the equal sign. Otherwise, I'm just going to present and hope for the best.
Okay, just hold on. Because I did put, okay, just hold on. Yes, I did put the equal sign first. Maybe let me type it out rather than copy and paste.
Okay.
Freddie, maybe while I'm trying to sort this out, we can go to the next presenter so that we don't waste time.
If that is all in order, is that in order with you?
Actually, let me just try for the best then, colleagues.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
let
right.
me just try for the best then.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. I just want to check that my share screen is ready. Right, good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you for this opportunity to be able to share with you one of our sibling universities as well. I'm going to present my screen. We've lost a couple of minutes and hopefully I can make up for it. Could you just confirm if you can see the screen?
Oh, yes, we can see it. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you. So I'm presenting on behalf of myself and our director, Letitia Permel, and Prof. De Wetskitte, who is speaking after this in more detail about one of the predictive analytical tools that we have.
For this opportunity that we at UWC have.
Sorry.
So in fact, if you can play the recording now, then we'll go to the recording preferably.
Oh, good. It sounded like Anna was about to play it. You can play it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we need the volume. All we need now is the volume, Anna.
Otherwise, let's just go to, I will just try my best then and hope that it doesn't cut out.
Oh, okay. We're not winning with the recorded one.
Okay, so.
Okay.
Oh, I heard sound now.
Oh, okay. Can I share again?
Yes, thank you. Last try.
One of the important aspects of your colloquium is exploring different topics, and I have been placed in the topic which is exploring language issues. We ourselves at the center have been grappling with how do we language the work that we do differently. Just to locate our work, we are in the center, we are part of the Student Development and Support DVC line, and we see students one-on-one. We also run group works. Part of we've got 5 teams in our student support unit. I am located in the Office for Student Support, but we've also got therapeutic services, leadership, and the Office for Students with Disability. I want to just share where some of our languaging input comes from, and also to share with you some of the data mining that we have done, which brings us to the point of saying that we must regard our work as a continuum, and equally with students, that each of them are in a different place in the continuum. Our learnings for this presentation is drawn from our institutional plan, the focus on student experience and academic excellence, and then also locating it with a priority in scholarship, critical citizenship, lifelong learning, and creative and collaborative problem solving. I have been part of a 4-year program, 3-year transition program, and then the follow-up now called Making Your Mark. And we introduced this predictive analytical tool, Making Your Mark, through MapWorks, as we call it, because we realized in student support, many students that come to our doors come and we have a reactive service in which we dominantly find how we need to craft and co-create support for them. But what happens with a critical mass? How do we use our resourcefulness and our expertise to actually work to give early warnings and to see before a student exits unduly, how we can work with the risk factors and the risk students to support them to success as well. So just an overview in these statistics, but Professor De Wet will be giving more details about this program. But just to give you an overview, that in transition 1, we had 499 students. You can see the statistics here, and a total of 7,357 participants over 3 years. This data was mined. And then also just to continue to say, some of the conceptual continuums that we realized should inform all our languaging and our conceptual crafting of the work that we do. We really battled with the word support. You would have seen earlier on that we are located in the student development and support line. And our center is called Center for Student Support Services. And the department I work with is called Office of Academic Support. And we realized, support has an implication also of you being the strong one and you being able to either provide a temporary crutch or to then do some of the work that needs to be done. So on our team now and growingly in our whole department, our whole unit, we say support is the beginning part of the continuum of what we do for students, but we work our way towards enabling them. This, of course, also the languaging of this is linked to our concept that a student has to be enabled to grow into the culture of academics. We also took, instead of speaking about research data that is quantitative heavy, for example, the CAM marks and the exam marks, we have said we need to hear the students' voices as a critical part of our data as well. So in our concept and our languaging of data, it isn't now, as you call it, cold data based on a particular research only, but we need to hear the student's voice. You can put your eyes down this slide and see that, one of the other language and conceptual changes we've made is instead of speaking about helping and intervening and support, we grow the student's agency. Instead of interventions, we speak of enablers. Instead of a responsive service, we've got a proactive component in it as well. Instead of just having students who access support, we say we are there for the critical mass as well. And we give personalized learning. What this has meant also is that in our teams, we've equipped our teams and we've equipped our Center for Student Support Services not only to provide a therapeutic basis, but we run group work. We look at the institutional data, for example, and see that many of the students that come out of school, a very limited amount of what they've learned in school is now going to impel them to get their degree. The rest of what they're going to do is about new learnings. So how do we do that? We run groups when students come into the university. We run groups. We also, as I've said earlier on, the student's voice is important. So when we hear in a one-on-one session, for example, a counseling session, when we hear a student having an external locus of control, where they blame the lecturer or they blame the fact that they don't have Wi-Fi, we grapple with that data to say, okay, how can we enable the student, alert them that there are other options as well? Please just cast your eye down the slide so that I don't run out of time. Usually therapeutic services are closed doors. The students have articulated to us that UWC has so many closed doors. And so we've created a beautiful space. Letitia Permel, our director, has called into being a wonderful team in our staff that have worked with creative spaces. So when you come into our space, we've got what we call the forest. The entire wall looks like a forest. Doesn't have a clinical setting anymore. So our languaging of what we do has really been taken from a lot of data, and it has informed not only how we think, but how we present ourselves as well, and how our students encounter us as well. Just cast your eye down our program offerings. Again, we don't speak about remediation. We don't regard a student only as, ill-equipped or, a failure, etc. We don't use that languages at all. We run programs, personal mastery and empowerment programs. This is a wonderful course. Do contact us if you are interested to hear more about that. Just cast your eye down this list. I'm going to shoot through this now. Maybe I can just tell you about this self-defense. Many of our students that have suffered huge traumas, instead of just giving them therapy and then they have triggers when they go back into the context in which the trauma occurred. Again, we grappled with our language, instead of just therapy and support. How do we get them to show agency and to make a difference in their energy? And therefore, we looked for an expert that is both a salsa dancer and a self-defense sensei in karate. And we found somebody, and so amidst having fun, we taught them how to defend themselves. We staff also attended this. So this is just an example to give you of how our languaging has informed, has been driven by our concepts, has been informed by all our data, cold data, the warm data of the students, etc. Now I'm just wanting to show you different layers of data that informs ongoingly the way that we work. This, if you cast your eye to the right-hand side of the map of the slide, our students that participated in our Making Your Mark program that Prof. De Wetskitte will be presenting on, every student got a report, which we didn't call a report, we worded it differently. We said, we're giving you a student map. On this map, the student got an idea of if they want to get to be successful, here are the things that you are doing amazingly, that you're strong at, amplify it. These are risk factors that you may want to address. These are resources that you can tap into, etc. But out of that 3-year program, the predictive analytical program, every faculty got a map as well of their students and their strengths, the faculty's strengths and the faculty's risk factors to address, and so to did the institution get a map as well. I'm not going to go into details, but you're most welcome to engage with us again on this. And then just to say, students too have had paradigm shifts in their language and their evolvements. When students come to us, they say, I just want to go school. I just want to go school. But I'm struggling to make sense of my assignments. You can cast your eye here again. We try in all that we do to remember the students' context, their culture, their history, that there's a beginning part to them coming into university and to grow their skills. That students are never left to feel now almost in a new environment where their personhood doesn't count, their strength doesn't count. We activate these consciously. I want to mention one example, and one of our officers in the Student Center for Student Support Services is Leadership and Social Responsibility Group. And with a couple of thousand students before lockdown, they annually have a Rise Against Hunger program in which staff and students come and pack food. Now, again, language is so important. And our languaging of key beingnesses, forgive my own word here, is that instead of students, so much in our meetings is about poverty and disadvantage and disadvantaged schooling. And we actually forget that this is a whole person. This is a person that God made with a brilliant brain. This is a person who has strengths and capabilities. So in this group, there's an equalizer. In this Rise Against Hunger, it's staff and students together. It's students who are doing brilliantly and students who are not doing brilliantly. But we network, and this event gives hope. It's us serving together. It's an experience of joy, where students, no matter if they've got nothing, are able to give. and they're not just located as a needy entity. It creates community as well, and it speaks about rising rather than sinking. Also of making a difference, of being a change agent, of sharing beauty. You can see the slide here, how beautiful our students are. It also gives an occasion for being happily curious. And as you know, in academics, it is so critical, absolutely critical, that curiosity is evoked. And students want to see, what is this all about? And of course, as I've said, it's not just then about being poverty-stricken, having no NSFAS, whatever, not being a disadvantaged case. These events are about you being precious, your time, your personality when you come. So we believe that university should actually be a happy place. Of course, all of us go through traumas. The lockdown has been significant in this way. But we need, as human beings, to have feel-good opportunities and to learn with gusto as well. And the Center for Student Support Services, rather than just being this clinical place where struggling students come, has programs now that are exciting. And even our therapeutic services had a funky mental health week in which they asked students to send in how do they maintain their mental health. And it was awesome. It was such a wonderful occasion. And just again, on the continuum, I'm not going to go into details. You can go and read David Hawkins' Power versus Force. But just to say, wherever our students are on the continuum, when they come and they start off by saying, I'm a failure, or I've got shame, I haven't done well, we assist them to work their way through to enablement, even particularly on the emotional level, on their life view, and then most decidedly on the academics. I'm not going to go into this. And then just to say, we always remember, I don't have time to do these case studies with you, but we always remember that we all come from a culture, a background, from joy, from a context that we tap into with our students. We have weekly thinks outside of lockdown, in which again, we sit as equal staff and students, and we share and we learn from each other. And then just to say, an important part of our thinking and our languaging is that it's not us supporting the students or us giving to students, but particularly that we are all learners, we are all students of life as well. So constantly at CSSS, at our unit, we have wonderful staff development sessions. We've had, for example, neuro learning. Now, even though our entire staff at CSSS doesn't necessarily need to learn this, we open it up to the entire team. We're about 26. And then there's a lot of theories on continuum theories that, inform a lot of how we work, and also impels us to remember that there's amazing indigenous wisdoms and depth listening that happens out of this frame of the hierarchy of academia, that we tap into the wisdoms of our students, their context, their families, etc. I'm not going to go into that detail either. I'm going to close by just saying a very important quotation from a film Restoration for me was saying that we need to really, when a student or a person, a client sits before us, I'm a psychologist, so this is an important part of the way that I work as well, is to really, when a person is broken and a person comes before you having failed in whatever way, it's not a denial of this, but to almost help them to reverse back to get them back to that moment of their wholeness, where joy and dancing and a new sense of life and wholeness can be activated as well. Thank you for listening. And if you need to contact us, these are our contact details. And Letitia, our director, it's our contact details. Prof. De Wet will be presenting later on. Thank you for this opportunity. God bless you.
Thank you, colleagues. Are there any questions or responses or additions to our own possibilities?
All right, thank you. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. Dr. Myongani we have lost Dr. Myongani. He has another appointment, but he'll be coming back later. So I will take over for now. Any questions, comments on the presentation from UWC?
Dr. Bengasa, I've just got a comment. Hi, Dorothea. I'm Surenta. Nice to meet you. I just found the presentation very, sorry, let me switch my video on. Interesting in terms of what you're saying about the language that we use when we're dealing with students and how we label them when they come to see us in student support. And I know that our students that we see at the writing place at UKZN often struggle when they first identified as, at risk. It throws them into, a huge tailspin sometimes when they first encounter this word, because, I'm at risk, what am I at risk of, and personally and quite subjectively. So just to comment that it's very interesting to hear your experiences of dealing with students, specifically within, psychological support there, and how, the way in which we talk to students, the way we talk about students, the way in which we engage with students is very important. As well as, the fact that we are available to them. We have an open door policy. The open door policy might, not be as effective if the way in which we're still engaging with them beyond that is still maybe reinforcing some of these anxieties and these fears that they might have. So I really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And, Surenta, we have to listen for the words students articulate about themselves and believe about themselves. And that is our task, actually, to take them from there on a continuum to possibilities. So even, you picked up that even in this presentation, there was the word risk students. Now, on a continuum, what our predictive analytical program did was to identify the at-risk factors in faculty, in the institution, and for the student, but to migrate from this concept of being at risk, because this is actually our task. When our students come, mastery is possible. Very sadly, I want to admit that a lot of belief by students and staff and the institution is that when a student, when we look at the throughput rate or a student hasn't made it, that the corrective lies with the student. And what happens in the system is often untested. It would be interesting, I won't share our institution map with you, but if you'll permit me to give you one example. So a student came to knock on our door and she said, I'm looking at my MapWorks map. And she says, I agree with everything on it and it's been so wonderful, but the one offended me. So we said to her, so which one offended you? And she said, I remember I had to answer out of 9 how my attendance is. And I remember thinking about it and thinking I haven't attended all my lectures, but I've attended most of it. I gave myself a 7 because out of my class, I attend the best. And she said, yeah, it told me that I need to actually pay attention to my attendance. Now, this MapWorks program, and I do hope you can listen to Prof. De Wet, I think it's at 1 or 1:30 now. This program is based on algorithms. We loaded all the students, the 25,000 students' results. So when a student says, I am registered in BCom, for example, it now takes the algorithms, and if the percentage, the pass mark, I'm making these figures up, but if the pass mark, for example, is 58%, and a student is attending 7 out of 9% of seven out of 9 times, there's still a risk nonetheless. So instead of saying to a student, yes, but you should actually just increase it based on our concept that it's the student's life and we're helping them in their understanding from where they are at to migrate. We said, let's just test 7 out of 9. You are saying that 7 out of 9 is actually quite magnificent. So we said, we can't say yes, we can't say no, but let's do 3 tests. One is you get in an aeroplane and you do your usual like you're doing now. You go to the pilot and you say, can I just check how much did you get for your pilot's license? And the pilot says, I was the best in my class, 7 out of 9. And you say, could I just check, where did your marks come down? And the pilot says, oh, somehow with the landing. When I go up, I got full marks. Then we say, are you going to get in the aeroplane? Next scenario, you've got to have a little operation. You check with the surgeon, sorry, how much did you get? 7 out of 9. And you ask the surgeon, so, where did you lose marks? He says, I'm accurate. I stitch up beautifully. I open up beautifully. But a couple of times I left the instrument in, and not a big thing, the person didn't die. Third scenario, you fall in love and you say to the guy, listen, can I just check? Are you going to be loyal to me? And the guy says, babe, you know what? 7 out of 9 times I'm going to be so loyal to you, but just now and again. So we said, this is testing 7 out of 9. The student goes back with their map and they think through their journey, what they need to migrate. And let me just tell you, this was a very good student actually, and she refused to miss any single class after that. Now, this is the student's map. One of the faculties, not her faculty, but one of the faculty's big risk factor was attendance. When we declared this to the faculty, we said, listen, here are your strengths. One of your risk factors is attendance. The students, when we worked with the students, could we just ask, why are you mostly online? This is before lockdown. Why are you mostly online? And the students were saying of that, many of the students in that faculty, listen here, my lecturer just goes through all the slides on eCanva. And in fact, instead of paying bus fare, train fare, all of that, from home, I can just go through the slides, even at night. Now, this is a risk factor because then education becomes about just reading a slide, not debating, not reading before the time. And testing is what on the slide here, where do I import this or synthesize this knowledge? What do I question about this? So there's the risk is that those subjects then might become about regurgitating, not really critical thinking. So the map, the same factor on attendance for a student looks different, for a faculty looks different, and for the institution. So when you go to the institution, and that wasn't one of the risk factors, but I'm making an example now. When you look at an institution where, and this isn't lockdown, colleagues, this isn't lockdown, but if an institution has to have big classes, which I'm sure UKZN is the same like us, some courses have huge classes. Financials are the reality that are causal. The university might have to look into workload that many of the lecturers have such big classes that it's humanly impossible to mark everything themselves. Even, Bloom's taxonomy is a big thing. Even to have essays and assignments and mark allocations for debate and for through critical reading and thinking and writing.
So you've got to choose the lesser cognitive functioning where you can mark it quite easily. So this is just one example of, you know, this thing that we call risk. But again, it's a journey for student and for faculty and for institution, and yes, for us to do some daring thinking. Thank you so much for that question, Sarenta. Oh, I've gone over my time with humble apologies.
Thank you, colleagues. I think we need to move on to the second presentation. We have just 1 hour left for our presentations. Our second presenter is Ms. Sarenta Naidu. She is the Writing Place Coordinator at the College of Law and Management Studies. Her presentation is on the impact of the writing place in the College of Law and Management Studies. Over to you, Sarenta. You've got 15 minutes for your presentation and 5 minutes for Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bengasai. Let me just start screen sharing. It's very interesting that Dorothea just mentioned critical thinking and critical writing, because it actually leads into my presentation for today and what we do at the Writing Place. Can everyone see my screen? Can you just tell me if you can see that?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm just going to put it on a full screen view because I've got some graphs that I will be showing you later on in the presentation. And because Dr. Bengasai has indicated that I've only got 15 minutes, I did anticipate that, but I see my Writing Place tutors who are joining me know that I tend to go on quite a bit. What I'm going to do is just try and keep the presentation quite short and get to the main presentation that I want to get to on the impact of the Writing Place in the College of Law and Management Studies. So yeah, thank you. Just bear with me if I go quite quickly through the slides. Sorry, let me just get to the other screen. All right, so I'm just going to skip a little bit over the background and the initial couple of slides that we've got, because it's background to what I'm going to be talking about today. And I think we're all quite familiar with the issues of that access to higher education in South Africa has improved. But what we're seeing is that students are actually not succeeding in their studies. And just to briefly say that one type of support that's been introduced to assist students in making this transition from high school to university is the development of writing centers in universities. Now, writing centers are important and they've received much credit because of the student-centered and learning-oriented approach that they use, where students can basically meet face-to-face with peer tutors and receive direct feedback on their work. They're spaces where students can challenge the status quo, resist power structures, work collaboratively with other students, rehearse academic identities, and strengthen their voices to participate in university life. According to theorists such as Tinto, integration into university life is actually crucial for student retention and success. Tinto believes that the more a student integrates into university life, the more likely they are to persist in their studies, and vice versa. So writing centers are places where this participation and integration can be encouraged, which is important for student retention. With regard to broader issues of transformation of higher education in South Africa, writing centers can assist universities to achieve the goals that we've set at our various institutions for student success and throughput, specifically for previously disadvantaged groups. Nichols argues that writing centers actually have a crucial role to play in this transformation because they can be viewed as spaces of critical consciousness where students challenge systems of authority and where the traditional power relations in higher education can be shifted. Govender and Alcock actually referred to what they call a humanizing pedagogy that results because of the student-centered and learning-orientated approaches that are used at writing centers. And they argue that this actually promotes, as Dorothea was saying earlier, the critical thinking, the criticality that we need in students, which is actually vital not only for their success as students, but also for building democracy and for advancing South African society as a whole. So most of the studies that have been done, both internationally and in South Africa, have used qualitative methods and evidence, such as students' views expressed in evaluation forms or investigations of the experiences of writing center practitioners to inform best practices to support students in their writing. And the overarching contention of these studies is that addressing students' writing needs is intrinsically linked to promoting their success in higher education. So what we see is that this evaluation, yes, it does give us a very important measure of student satisfaction with support services and the specific processes, the specific types of support that we need to be offering students to help them to develop in their writing and in their literacy. But while this evaluation is important and, gauging these measures of student satisfaction and success in using qualitative methods are important, the quantitative measurement and evaluation of academic programs is becoming increasingly important. So quantitative evaluation of the impact of writing centers is mainly important, obviously, due to the shifting nature of the higher education sector in South Africa, specifically in the context of dwindling higher education funding and increased competition for this funding that's allocated to student support initiatives. From a review of the international literature, it appears that only very few studies that specifically address the impact of writing centers have been undertaken. In South Africa, only one study by Avi and Samuel, of the studies that I reviewed in the research that we're conducting in the unit, could be found that used quantitative methods to assess student performance at a writing center at a university in KwaZulu-Natal. So in their study, they focused on how the use of the writing center was linked to student grades. And what they found was that there was significant statistical evidence to show that students who made use of the writing center performed better on average than non-users. So considering this lack of quantitative research and particularly, I suppose, at our institution as well, we've relied very heavily on qualitative evaluation of specifically the writing place. We need to conduct more quantitative studies that actually measure the impact that we're having on students in terms of their actual success, the actual outputs, for example, their performance in the modules that they seek assistance for. So a bit of background about our writing place at the College of Law and Management Studies. Our center was actually the first one to be established in the University of KwaZulu-Natal in 2006, after the merger of the University of Natal and the University of Durban-Westville. There are now two main writing centers in the university. The other one is in the College of Humanities. And there are also various other forms of writing support in the other two colleges, such as writing coaches or academic development officers who assist specifically with technical writing. Our writing place was established mainly as a result of the discontinuation of a compulsory first-year module, which was known as Integrated Business Studies, where students were taught critical reading and writing skills that they would need for the different forms of assessment in their degrees. When the writing place first began operating in 2006, there were 2 joint student coordinators and 5 student tutors working out of a single office. And we've now grown into a center with 1 coordinator and approximately 15 or 16 tutors per semester who work across 3 campuses that offer management studies and law modules. So that would be Westville campus, Howard campus, and Pietermaritzburg campus. And traditionally, when we were seeing students on a face-to-face basis before COVID-19, we used an electronic booking system to schedule our appointments with students. So 2 of our tutors are based at Howard, 2 are based at Pietermaritzburg, and the rest of the tutors work from Westville. Obviously, that reflects the student enrollments per campus for law and management studies modules. In March 2020, of course, we had to move to online consultations. So we've obviously experienced a shift from our traditional face-to-face engagement with students to more online forms of support. And I know we've got colleagues joining us from DUT, and they'll be presenting on the specific challenges and successes that they've faced in their transition to online consultation. So it'll be very interesting to hear some feedback from our colleagues at DUT about the specific challenges or the specific opportunities that were presented in this transition. So our evaluation of writing place support is largely centered on qualitative evaluation, as I mentioned before. In 2016, we introduced a comprehensive student evaluation form. And in 2020, we moved to an online Google Forms questionnaire, which has a similar format to our paper student evaluations that we used at the writing centers on the various campuses. The feedback from the student evaluations over the years has been very positive and indicates that students do benefit from their consultations and feel that they perform better in their written work after visiting the writing place. They feel more confident about their ability to write an academic assignment and would refer other students to us for assistance. While this form of evaluation is useful and encouraging, there's still a pressing need to substantiate these student, tutor, and academic staff views with actual evidence to demonstrate that the writing place does have an impact on student performance. For example, what I will be presenting in this presentation in terms of the actual marks achieved in their modules. In 2018, a basic analysis was conducted where 5 modules with the highest attendance of students per module were identified, and the marks of students who had attended the writing place were compared with the marks of their counterparts who had not attended. From the data presented in the table here at the bottom of the slide, we can see that the average marks achieved by students who attended the writing place were higher in all modules than for students who had not attended. In Marketing 302, for example, we can see that even though the average mark attained by writing place attendees was not particularly high at 55.3%, it's still 9.3% higher than the average mark of students who did not attend the writing place for the specific assignment that I was looking at in this analysis in 2018. A similar trend is also evident for the other 4 modules. The average marks of students attending the writing place were higher in all 4 modules than for students who did not attend the writing place. So the 2018 study was a useful starting point to inform the larger study that is now being conducted in the teaching and learning unit, where we are assessing the impact of all programs that are offered in the unit. So that's the foundation program, the academic monitoring and support programs, so the ADOs and the first year experience, and the writing place, to see the impact, to assess the impact that these programs have on actual student performance. So for the writing place, what we did was we identified the 3 highest attended modules between 2018 and 2021. In this slide, we can see the percentage of students who attended the writing place for these 3 modules from 2018 to 2081. So for example, for Marketing 2IM, 26 or approximately 26% of students who are registered for the module consulted the writing place over the 4 years. For Marketing 301, approximately 40% of registered students consulted the writing place, and for Management 2SM, approximately 23% of students who were registered over the 4 years consulted at the writing place. So while these percentages might seem low, if we look at the actual numbers of students in the table at the bottom, we can see that for Marketing 2IM and Management 2SM, although it's only lower percentages of attendance at the writing place, this actually equates to 880 students of the total of 1,101 students who consulted for these 3 modules at the writing place from 2018 to 2021. So they actually form the majority in terms of actual numbers of students who consulted at writing place. This slide shows the breakdown in terms of gender of students who consulted at writing place from 2018 to 2021. What is interesting to note here is that while on average, male students comprise approximately 44% of students registered in these modules. So if we look at the table at the bottom, if we look at the average number of male students registered for these 3 modules. It equates to around 44% of students registered. However, at the writing place, only 36% of the students that we saw in this 4-year period were male students. On the other hand, female students comprise 54% of students registered in these 3 modules, yet their attendance at writing place comprises 64% of the students that we see at writing place. So previous research has suggested that male students... Anna, thank you.
Are you almost running out of time?
Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead then a little bit. Okay, so it was just interesting to see that male student attendance is actually lower in terms of proportion of students that we see, and female attendance is higher than the proportion of female students that are actually registered in those 3 modules for the 4 years. Similar findings, sorry, not similar, but interesting findings were also found when we looked at the attendance by race at writing place. And so I'll just summarize quickly. I won't go into too much detail. I want to get to the actual marks. So basically what we're seeing here in the graph is that while African students make up 73.4% of students who are registered for these modules, in terms of attendance at writing place, they only make up about 61% of students who attend, while the opposite is true for Indian, colored, and white students. They have lower actual registration in the modules, but they make up higher percentages of attendance at the writing place. So again, some interesting findings that we are seeing at the writing place based on performance, based on attendance. The students who, based on the fact that African students are most likely to drop out of or abandon their degrees and not complete their degrees, are actually, the lowest in terms of attendance at the writing place. And it just means that we need to tailor our support initiatives more towards the groups who may need these support initiatives the most. So the actual focus of the study was, like I said earlier, was actually looking at whether the performance of students who attend the writing place is better, higher, do they achieve more marks than students who don't attend. So the 3 graphs on this slide show the average marks for students who attended the writing place versus students who did not attend. So I'll just briefly go through. For Marketing 301, if we look at the first graph here, we can see that students who consulted the writing place scored about 4% higher than non-attenders. If we look at Management 2SM, students performed about also, I think it was, 6% higher than students who did not attend the writing place. And the same for Marketing 2IM. They performed about 6% higher on average than students who did not attend the writing place. So the results are basically showing us that in general, students who consult the writing place are more likely to get more marks and more likely to perform better overall in their modules. I won't go into too much detail about this slide, except to say that it just shows the distribution of marks for students who attended writing place versus students who didn't attend writing place. And what it's showing is that students who attend writing place tend to score in the higher mark distributions. They tend to get 75s and above if they do attend writing place. So I know I've got about a minute left. I'll just briefly conclude. So the overall conclusions that we see, fewer males than females access writing support, fewer African students access writing support, if we consider the actual proportions of these students that are registered for the modules. With regard to actual student performance, students who consult the writing place perform between 4 to 6% better than students who don't consult at writing place over the 4-year period that we looked at in this study. And so while it's not a very huge difference in terms of marks, it's still a positive indication that students do benefit from their participation in our academic support initiatives, specifically the writing place, and also in terms of integration into university life and participating in the initiatives and the structures that are in place to support them. So for future research, what we need to do now that we've got the stats about male participation versus female, or the racial breakdown of students who attend the writing place, and the actual performance or the actual marks of students, is that we need to look at why certain groups are not attending the writing place as frequently or as much as they should be, and how can we tailor our support to these specific groups so that all students can access writing place support, and we can therefore encourage higher participation of these groups. I know there's obviously limitations to the research that we're doing. I won't again go into too much detail, we're now out of time, but maybe we can discuss this in the questions and the feedback to the presentation. So thank you. I know I went through it quite quickly. I know that there's going to be a lot of follow-up discussion in the unit and amongst the tutors and the other ADOs and lecturers that we work with. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to your input and feedback. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Serena. I think since we're running out of time, we will leave the Q&A, for the end. So, those of you who've got questions, you can just note them down, and towards the end of the session, then we can just ask all the questions. All right, we're going to move on to the third presentation. The third presentation is from Durban University of Technology, and we have Swangile Nari to do the presentation. You've got 15 minutes for the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Bengasai. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm just going to share my screen. Right. I hope we can all see my screen.
Yes, we can, Swangile. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, let me go to slideshow. Let me just minimize this pop-up. Okay, good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you so much for having us this afternoon. And our presentation this afternoon is titled Going Online, COVID-19 Related Challenges and Successes at University of Technology in South Africa. Now, our presentation is based on challenges that we have faced at the Writing Center. I'm not sure my colleagues have been able to join me. We've had other events that have been running since this morning that are Writing Center related. I have checked. I don't think they're online with me yet. I hope that in the course of this presentation, we'll be able to join in. However, we will forge ahead. So for this presentation, I'm going to give a brief introduction, background, and the methodology that we used to come up with this presentation. I'm going to present some challenges that we do acknowledge existed before the COVID-19. I'll highlight the multimodal approach that we selected and elected to use. And then we'll move on to the COVID-19 related challenges and successes, and finally conclude the presentation. The Durban University of Technology is a multi-campus institution with 6 operational writing center sites and 42 tutors. It's quite a big group, and these are distributed between the various centers. It currently serves a community of over 30,000 students, staff, and alumni. Now, we acknowledge that a significant proportion of our students are from previously disadvantaged backgrounds. They're first-generation students. A lot of them are unprepared for university life. The family structures are quite diverse. Most of them are second language English speakers, are NSFAS funded, studied at public schools, and are from rural backgrounds. This presentation serves to highlight the different issues that we recognize COVID-19 as potentiating. And one of them we recognized was the lack of a shared understanding of the role of the Writing Center within the institution, the compromise of quality for tutors and tutee interactions in individual and group consultation, possible compromise in the quality of tutor feedback with regards to the written feedback, which is the asynchronous engagement, a lack of cohesion and a shared understanding amongst the tutors themselves in the Writing Center, and an exacerbation of already existing digital inequalities and last but not least, blurred work-life boundaries. For methodological considerations, we use the reflective process. And this reflection was done amongst the tutors. And we also consulted some existing secondary data, which was quantitative, which I'll present as well. To begin with, I'll look at the Writing Center pre-pandemic challenges. One of the challenges that we faced, even with Writing Center, before I get to the challenges, I just want to tell you what our Writing Center, how we operated. First of all, these are operating hours that have been highlighted there, from a Monday to Thursday at 8:30 to 7 o'clock, and on a Friday, 8:30 to 3 o'clock, and on a Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 o'clock as well. We had the opportunity to have face-to-face consultations at the writing centers within our tutor rooms. And all our bookings were done through the Writing Center online booking system, WC Online. And this we phased in across the writing centers between the years 2015 and 2018. And by 2019, all writing centers had adopted the approach of having students register and do their bookings with the Writing Center online. However, this booking system was mainly used for reporting and administrative purposes. Some of the pre-COVID-19 challenges that we experienced was, number one, a lack of shared understanding of the role of the Writing Center. This is amongst the students, with staff, and the faculty. And this is with regards the lack of understanding relating to editing and proofreading. Because most of students, and we find even staff members, don't understand and don't know the difference between these and actually what we do at the Writing Center. The next challenge that was there was digital inequalities. Students often faced the challenge with the use of technology. So students' challenges with booking online and registering online, we would assist students who had such challenges by inviting them to come and walk into the Writing Center, and they would get assistance, and a tutor would assist them with actually registering and making the bookings online. The next challenge that we did face before the COVID-19 was students not showing up for consultations. Sometimes students would abscond consultations, and other times students would get lost online. And what I mean by getting lost online is, regardless of making a booking, a student would probably book at one of the centers at Steve Biko campus and show up at ML Sultan campus. And because their bookings with Steve Biko campus, a tutor at ML Sultan campus is unable to assist them, oftentimes because they're fully booked themselves. So that's how students would get lost online. Our multimodal approach that we adopted due to the challenges, due to the COVID-19 lockdown and related challenges, included the use of our WC Online, which allowed us to have video, instant messaging, audio, and whiteboard facilities when dealing with our students. The next one that we used was the Microsoft Teams, which also had the same functionalities as the WC Online software. We also used WhatsApp. We also used the written feedback service via email, where a student would email the documents through to a tutor, and then this tutor would give their feedback on that document. The last one that we used was Zoom. Now I have a summary here of the adoption of the multimodal approach. The summary is for 2020. We did an analysis to see the adoption according to the mode. Students, as they make a booking, they're required to choose which platform they would like to meet a tutor on. So we have all of them represented there: the WhatsApp, the written feedback, the Zoom, the MS Teams, and the WC Online. We also have the same comparison for 2021. This is up to September, and these are our figures for up to September of 2021. The next image is a graph, which is a comparison between the 2 years, 2020 and 2021, the use of selection of MS Teams, WC Online, WhatsApp, written feedback, and Zoom. You will notice there that the students selected WhatsApp and written feedback more than they did the other modes of engagement. Now I'll move on to the actual COVID-19 related challenges that we would like to highlight. The first one is the lack of shared understanding, which was already there, but only now it was exacerbated because we did not have the opportunity to meet and talk with students. We did not have the opportunity, as we normally do during orientation week, to go into the faculties, to go into the departments, and to meet with lecturers and their students alike. The next challenge was that of digital inequalities, which were further exacerbated. Access to technology, the use of technology, skills and self-perceptions concerning technology. And why this challenge is particularly important to us is because it is concerned with a broad range of outcomes connected to life chances and life trajectories. You will note, even from the graph that I shared and I highlighted, that the highest selection was between WhatsApp and between written feedback. And the other modes, which have significantly more engagement, which would provide that platform for students and for tutors, had a low selection rate. The next challenge that we would like to highlight is that a compromising quality, in the quality and uniformity of tutor asynchronous feedback. This was due to a lack of training in the area of written feedback. And I will highlight at this point that we have since discontinued this mode because we realized that students were selecting it more and more, and we did not have the opportunity then to engage with our students in the way that we would want to as a writing center. The next challenge was that unpredictable virtual space for both tutors and tutees, where we used to meet students in a tutor room and have a conversation in a controlled environment. Oftentimes you would call a student or you meet with a student and you discover students in a taxi, a students in a train or in a bus. So writing spaces, writing center spaces kind of evolved and have kind of changed and they're to a large extent quite unpredictable. And sometimes students actually be in bed or just getting up and rushing between appointments. And these have now evolved into the kind of spaces that we meet our students in. The next challenge that we faced is that of increased administration-related tasks for our tutors who have now been required to do a lot more follow-up on students to find out why they have not attended consultations and offer alternative methods for consultations to the students. So it has brought in quite a bit of admin work that wasn't there before. Access to data, students running out of data in the middle of consultations or not being able to attend a consultation because they do not have data anymore. Another challenge is that of psychological well-being, both for the students and the tutors. We understand and we recognize that tutors need to be conscious of the effects of the current environment where people have lost loved ones, people have lost jobs, they've lost livelihoods and so forth. And the need for emotional intelligence when we get into writing center spaces and we meet with our students. However, we also recognize that tutors have also suffered the same kind of loss, and they also need the same kind of support that other students would need. Another challenge that we would like to highlight is that of blurred work-life boundaries. These are physical boundaries, social boundaries, emotional boundaries, and psychological boundaries. Student access to a tutor's personal emails and to their cell numbers, because you're calling students on WhatsApp, you're calling them to find out where they are, why they haven't turned up for a consultation, because you need to actually do a report on that for each student. This has kind of opened up a different space for students to come into. And oftentimes with tutors complain of students who will send a message or call the tutor around 10 p.m. at odd hours of the night or strange hours of the morning because the student is working on an assignment and they just need that extra assistance from the tutor. So we find that where the tutor would be able to leave the office or leave the tutor room and leave the work there, that work pretty much goes wherever their cell phone is, or wherever they have their device. The next challenge is that of diminished shared understanding amongst the tutors themselves. We value and we have always valued the physical contact and that we have had within the tutor rooms, and how tutors learn from each other during consultations and in between consultations. So this has resulted in a low incidence of cross-pollination of ideas. And this was particularly felt this year as we moved into a new year and we needed to recruit a lot of tutors because a lot of them had moved on to other opportunities. Now we move on to some of the successes that we would like to highlight. Number one, the multifunctionality of the Writing Center online system, booking system. That one offered a lot of opportunity for, and it still offers a lot of opportunity for engagement, and increased engagement and participation for our students, especially for those who work during the day. And as they often used to book sessions after work, now they're able to make their bookings during their tea times. We have students who book over their lunch breaks. So this flexibility has allowed them to have opportunity to engage. The decision to discontinue the writing feedback option has actually assisted us in improving engagement because students now are forced to engage with the tutor about their work, and that way the quality of their writing has actually opportunity to improve. For more, we now have more flexibility because of our multimodal approach. It has improved our technical knowledge and capacity for both students and tutors alike. Our geographically displaced postgraduate students who previously could not access our services can now do so with ease. Consultations are no longer confined by physical limitations of space, and where we could only house probably 5 tutors at a time because we're in a small tutor room, or 10 tutors at a time because we're in a limited space, we could probably even have more than 15, 20 tutors on the schedule, depending on the requirements and the demand at that time of the year. Our tutor training that we have at the beginning of the year and the weekly tutor trainings that happen at each center have also been successful, as they have gone a long way in supporting tutors with onboarding on the different platforms. So we do commend the forward thinking and the innovativeness of our Writing Center management, which has facilitated the early adoption and easy migration onto these online platforms, particularly for the Writing Center staff. What's up for the future then is the question. Increased orientation with the DUT community, a standardization of practices, particularly looking at the asynchronous engagement, increasing peer engagement amongst DUT writing centers and tutors. And in conclusion, we would like to highlight that in spite of the COVID-19 induced transition onto online-based learning, DUT writing center tutors have evolved and built their capacities for the migration. The adaptation to the online consultations was achieved within a very short period with minimal formal training and preparedness. The center, as a team, reflects continually on this online mode of service delivery and other aspects of their academic practices for better efficiency and effectiveness. Current challenges are viewed positively as opportunities for growth and development. These are some of the references that we used for our presentation, and we would like to thank you.
All right, thank you for that presentation, colleagues. It's actually quite interesting and encouraging to hear what other institutions are doing. I don't know, our fourth presenter is Ngobile Mlangeni. Is he or she in the house? Okay, so we will move on to the last presentation. That is by Kwazi Makubane, Nolwazi Biela, and Jessica on supporting conceptual threshold crossings through primary language, video resources, conceptual videos in isiZulu in economics. All right, colleagues, I'm also going to request you, to those of you who have been in the presentations from the beginning, I'm going to request you to also in the chat session, just choose one presentation that you feel was the best. Right, over to you.
Thanks, Dr. Bengasai. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. As it has been indicated, our topic is supporting conceptual threshold crossings through primary language video resources, conceptual videos in isiZulu and economics. I'm going to share the presentation today with my colleague, Nolwazi Biela. Unfortunately, our other colleague, Jessica Gopel, could not join today. So today's presentation has two components to it. So in the first part, sorry. Yes, so in the first part, I'm going to give a little bit of rationale in terms of what we are doing, and then talk about some theoretical frameworks that we have used or relied on to, as well as have a little discussion about the decolonization of language and learning. And then the second part will be focusing mainly on what we have done, the videos that we have created as a support resource for teaching and learning economics. My colleague Nolwazi will present on that second part. So briefly, what we are doing is we have realized that the use of home language as a medium of teaching and learning at universities is one of important tools to promote cognitive and academic proficiency. But in the discipline of economics, here at UKZN and in other universities, most concepts that are important in the disciplines are only taught in English, and there have been no efforts that have been put towards developing home language-based resources that can aid in teaching and learning economics. So as a contribution or to bridge this gap, what we are doing is we have developed conceptual videos that are done in isiZulu for economics at UKZN. Now, they are conceptual in the sense that they don't replace lectures or tutorials or any other form of engagement between students, but we take a particular concept that is regarded as a crucial concept in terms of unlocking a particular module or even the whole field of economics. And then we make short videos around that concept, trying to explain it, have a discussion around it, and also use examples in order to highlight that particular concept. So as I've said, the videos, they supplement lectures, so they are very short. They will last about 5 minutes to 10 minutes or on average, and they are informal in the sense that we can switch between isiZulu and English during the videos if there is no isiZulu equivalent word that can be used to actually explain a particular concept. But we try by all means to avoid doing word-on-word translation, so just taking stuff from English and then translating it in isiZulu. What we want to do is to develop a discourse around that particular concept in the isiZulu language. So we take the everyday isiZulu use of isiZulu language and then bring it now into a more specialized usage of it, and then apply it into economics and how we can learn and teach in economics. What motivated us is basically that in the discipline of economics at UKZN, there are approximately close to 5,000 students that are registered on average each year. And 65% of those students are isiZulu speakers. And one of the challenges is that there is a concern of high failure rate or poor academic performance, especially among students who speak English as a second language. So that will include this 65% of students who are isiZulu speakers as their home language. And one of the barriers that have been pointed out is the issue of the language gap. That because in economics is only taught in English, that means before a student can understand the concept itself that is being taught, they actually have to spare some time to understand the language itself, which is English, and then use that information now to try and understand the concept. And because English is a second language to most of the students, they may not 100% understand the language itself, which means their understanding of the concept as well may also be impaired in a particular way. So our aim with these videos is to actually introduce a tool of bilingualism, whereby students, they have resources that are available in both English and isiZulu, and therefore they can code switch between these two languages. They can start off with English, for instance, and if they don't understand the particular concept in English, then they can go back to isiZulu and try and understand it in isiZulu. And more than just as a resource, is that because isiZulu is their home language, most of the students, it means that they can think about economics concept in a much more relatable way than it is when they have to think about them in English. It also means that they can have discussions using their own mother tongue to outside the classroom to actually unpack and debate these economics concepts. Our work is motivated by two theories. The first one is the theory that is called a threshold concept framework. So in this framework, what happens is in each and every field, there are concepts that are regarded as core concepts, and they will actually relate to a particular module. So in a particular, for instance, economics 101, there are core concepts that you need to grasp there. But those core concepts do not affect how you understand the world around you, and they do not affect how you link that one particular module with the whole field that you are in, which is economics in this case. So the threshold concept goes an extra mile and takes those core concepts and try and present them in a way that can unlock new understanding in the field of economics that the student could not have before those concepts were taught before. So this threshold concept, what they will do is they will look at the student, the context of the student, which level are they in? Are they in second year or third year? What language are they using? And then try and shape the concept around the context of the student so that they can actually now use it to understand their reality in that particular time, as well as understand the field that they are in at the same time. So they focus on, they are more transformative in a sense, such that if you understand those concepts, your view has to be transformed internally. You can now see the link between what you learned at first year economics and what you learned at second year economics and what you learned, for instance, at third year economics. And they are, in addition to being transformative, they are progressive in the sense that what you understand today about a particular concept may not necessarily be the same as what you understand tomorrow about that particular concept. So your understanding grows and improves as you go through the field of economics in that particular sense. So my colleague will speak about these concepts a little bit further in terms of what concepts have been identified in the economics as these gateway or threshold concepts. The second theory that is linked to what we are doing is the decolonization of language. We know that during the 2015-2016 student protest in South Africa, there were a lot of discussions about how to transform the curriculum. And one of the proposed ways was that the curriculum should be taught in African languages so that it can be able to capture African experiences, indigenous knowledges, and practices that are embedded in African languages. So here we quote some writers on the topic, such as Fanon, who views language as a way of comprehending the other person that you are communicating with. Okay, so, and then there is Ngungi, who says that language is how you define yourself, or it relates you to your context, your social environment, and your natural environment. And what that means for what we are doing is that the language itself also affect these threshold concepts that we speak about, because if they are being taught in a particular language, that means students, they will perceive them in a particular way. And if they are taught in their home language, they will perceive them in a particular way. They can be more relatable, because in what we are doing, we also try and use everyday examples that we know that are also embedded in the isiZulu language. And it also affects how the learner or the student actually relates with the content that are being taught and the person who is teaching them. So if we only rely on English, there can be that gap between the student and the teacher, that they cannot actually communicate outside the classroom. But if we use the isiZulu, the student can relate more easily to the teacher, and so forth. So we try and combine these two theories and say, okay, we know that language is a problem and it needs to be, home language needs to be included, and there are these particular concepts that are problematic in the field of economics, and then we bring those two things together to try and come up with a product that can actually assist students. So they've more than what Fanon and Ngungi are saying, that language is a way of perceiving and it's an identity. Language is also a symbol of power, and it carries with itself basic skills and knowledges that can be imparted to the general population. So by moving from this everyday use of Isi language to a specialized use of isiZulu, that means that the language in the process itself has to be transformed to now bring in these new specialized skills and knowledges in the field of economics that can actually students carry across and impart them to their families and to their friends at home. So my colleague Nolwazi will now speak a little bit further now in terms of how we have actually underwent into developing these videos and identifying these concepts that are transformative and problematic in economics. Nolwazi?
Thank you, de Klerk. Okay. So the process that we underwent when we were trying to develop these videos is a two-step process, where we first did some brainstorming and we relied on literature. The literature that we used was by Davis and Mangum, which they did in 2007. And there they were developing a web of economic concepts, which they regarded as threshold concepts. We also relied on our teaching and learning experience together with some of the teaching and learning staff in our department. We then cross-checked and identified the concepts with the course outlines to check if they receive similar weights in the textbook. Next step was then to list all these concepts, and then we sent out these lists to the teaching staff so that they could provide us with inputs. Next, please. So this is the web of economic concepts that Davis and Mangum developed, which points out to some of the threshold concepts as elasticity, opportunity cost, and the concepts of margins, to name a few. Next, please. This next slide then shows a list of concepts that we had developed earlier, and we show there also the feedback that we were receiving from the teaching staff in our departments. Next. The second step was the actual recording of the videos. What we did then, after we had agreed on which are the threshold concepts, we went out to the internet to see what was done with relation to the concepts. We wanted to see how these the resources had organized them and to see what examples that they were used. We then formed little outlines for each videos that we were planning to record, and we sent out the outlines to the teaching staff to get evaluation and inputs. Then it was now, after we got feedback, it was now the actual recording had to start. How we did this recording was in an informal way, which consisted largely of isiZulu language and English, where no isiZulu equivalent words or phrases were available. The examples that we used were largely from the textbook, slides, tutorial, and we also used real life examples so that which are closely related to students, so that they better understand what we were trying to explain. Next, after we recorded the videos, we sent them out to the teaching and sorry, I think I got cut off.
Okay, you can continue.
Okay, can we go to the next slide, de Klerk, please? So the next slide here shows screenshots of our videos, all the videos that we had recorded thus far. Next, please. The dissemination of the videos, we uploaded them to the Moodle pages of the first year economics modules, the BBA economics module and foundation economics modules. We did this through Moodle. We also put the videos on YouTube and Facebook under the EconoFrames pages. Next. With regards to the uptake, we had a large uptake. What this graph shows is the uptake for the Econ 101 students. We had a total of 1,288 students. We can see that in some of the videos, for example, the first one, the trade-off and opportunity cost, you had a total number of views which were well above 2,000. And what that shows is that each student was viewing the videos, the video more than once. So that's what it shows. What was interesting to us also was the number of isiZulu or non-Nguni speaking students who were viewing our videos. That's shown with the gray bar. So that was interesting to us because we will still formally investigate how they benefited from watching these isiZulu videos. Next. Again here for the BBA economics, the uptake was large. Again, with a total of 25 students, a video such as price elasticity of demand had a total views of well over 50, illustrating again the point that students were watching these videos more than once. Next. And this is the graph for the foundation economics in first semester. What we can see again, which is a pattern, is that there are non-Nguni speaking students who are clicking on the videos. Okay, thank you. Next. Early feedback, we received positive early feedback via WhatsApp messages, WhatsApp video calls, emails, and what we noted was that it was positive, and students were just pointing out the fact that the videos are helping them and they are saving time, because now they don't have to start translating first before they actually can understand the concepts. It's easier because they are getting it with a familiar language. Next. So what's our next step? Our next step is to formalize our research. So we will do this using questionnaires, and we will try to explore student engagement with videos and also check the effectiveness of the videos as a learning tool. Thank you. We are welcoming any suggestions for future work, as this is still work in progress, and any questions that you colleagues might have. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, for the wonderful presentations. I'm going to invite questions for the three presentations that we did not have a Q&A for. Any questions for the second presentation by Serenta Naidu? All right, I do not see any questions for the presentation by Sibongile Nari. Looks like people are hungry, they want to go for lunch now. And lastly, the last presentation. All right, I just want to comment on the presentations that we have had in this session. I've attended a lot of colloquia, and to be honest, these presentations were well thought out. And you can actually see the amount of work that went into all of these presentations. I really liked all of them. There's a lot to learn from the presentation from Dorothea from UWC. Actually, things that we could also, do in our own context. So it's quite interesting to see what other colleagues are doing. Surrender, I think the DUT presentation, really is something that we need to look into, also having sort of like a multimodal approach to the support that we give students. And I'm quite impressed with the presentation by Kwazi and Nolwazi. And I didn't know that something like this was actually happening in our own college. It's actually a great initiative, especially considering for years I've been fighting for something like this, and now to see that it's happening when I've actually stopped, talking about it, and now it's happening, and it's a great idea. Please keep it up. All right, so colleagues, we're going to, from this session now, we're going to move back to the main webinar for the last part of the colloquium today. You're going to receive, sorry, just hold on. Yes. Okay, we're going now. Yes, we're going, since you are the co-host of all the other sessions, maybe you can tell the other hosts that they need to sort of like round off so that we can copy to the main webinar. All right. Okay, so we're going back to the main webinar. You're also going to receive an email from Pumla with an evaluation form for today. Please just complete it because it's for today's session. For tomorrow's sessions, we're going to have, what do you call this? For tomorrow's session, we're going to have another evaluation. Also, please to attend tomorrow. There are going to be prizes for the best presentation in each session. So you never know, your paper might actually win best presentation, and you have to be there to get your prize. And lastly, also attendance, make sure you have registered for today's colloquium and tomorrow, because we've got gifts for all people who have registered. So if you attended but without completing the registration form, we won't have your details and you might not get your gift. So please ensure that for today you're registered, and also for tomorrow's session you're registered. All right, so that's the end of our session now. Let's use the links that we received for the main webinar to go back to the main webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.